My name is Benga Bora. Welcome to the best breakfast show on the planet. This is Breakfast Central, where we give you everything you need to start your day the right way. I'm Benga Bora.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have Olive in the house, who's spotted wearing, well, almost
national colors. I had to check the calendar to see if today was Independence Day.
Well, today is the day before Valentine's Day, and you know, a lot of people are going to be getting flowers, and the rest of us are going to be there judging their flowers and say it's even plastic. So I went green, the color of a number of plastic bottles here. Anyway, that's just dry. Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. Thank you for joining us. We hope that for the next 2 hours, you're able to follow through some of the biggest conversations around Nigeria's politics. I am Olive Emodi, and you're very welcome. Remember that we continue our conversations on social media. Particularly, you can tweet at us at X, at News Central TV, or you can tweet at us individually. Now, let's get into our top stories, or our wake-up conversations.
Definitely. Well, our first story has got to do with a viral video that's been circulating right from yesterday. It did see a police officer being dragged by naval officers and Air Force, I beg your pardon, and he was being taken, or was being dragged right into a place he never wanted to go, like the the proverbial saying on social media says, "They carry me,
help me, they carry me to go where I don't know."
Why I don't know. And that's exactly what was happening yesterday. But if you haven't seen that video, we have that video, and then we have updates on what really was going on. Although it's a bit sketchy, but let's tell you what really happened. But first of all, feast on this, or better still, sip a tea to this one. Take a look. There you have that video. It's quite a sad video for us to see and also share with you, but it's on social media. You're wondering what could have happened or what was going on there. Well, let's give you a little update on that video. Well, the update simply is that that incident happened somewhere at Air Force checkpoint along Jedo Road in Okpe, local government of Delta State. That's just behind the refinery. Now, the cause of the fight between the uniformed men, that's police officers, and of course the Air Force, is said to not be known. It's unknown. It's not ascertained yet. The Delta Police Command spokesperson SP Bright Edafe said the police have not gotten details of the incident yet. And this goes to show that we've seen this happen many times. In 2004, we recall that there were 2 dead persons as police and soldier clashed in Nasarawa. Also in 2004 as well in May. Remember the Banex Plaza in Abuja that was indeed shut down because, of course, you had a show of power between the police and, not forgetting, the military police, both who are security operatives. And then in 2003, in November, Adamawa police and the army clashed, and that led to a lot of incidences, also resulting to deaths. So we're seeing our, forces, security forces being engaging in fisticuffs like this. And it's serious. You know what struck me the most is the fact that they're using the weapons to actually fight.
I mean, and things could go wrong. There's civilians around, there, passers-by, you could have accidental discharge, and then the story changes. What could be the situation that couldn't be handled in a more responsible manner? I mean, these are men in uniform, you hold them to higher standards, and to see them fight like this and scuffle in the full glare of the public is quite shameful.
It is not, I mean, it's super shameful because if you compare what we have here to how the men of the armed forces are typically treated in other countries in the West, we would see where young children look at them in admiration and say that when they grow up, they want to be a member of the police, or they want to, join the armed forces, the firemen. My friend's sons say they want to be firemen because of how much these people are looked upon with so much adoration and reverence. But this right here is just an embarrassment.
And I believe Bright Odafe, I mean, he knew it happened in his jurisdiction. He knew the story. So it was just, he didn't have the materials to go to the press with.
And there's nothing that really, it doesn't matter what the issue is. There's nothing that should have upset them that much to lose all sense of self-control and start fighting like that in public.
I mean, Joe, what happened to Esprit de Corps? I thought they were all one happy family.
Well, I also tried to do a bit of digging on that story as well, and spoke to a few persons who live in that area, and they said that zone is notorious, especially known for a lot of checkpoints where police officers will stop you and say how far, anything, and it's always a case of let's stop and search. You must part ways with something. They must tell you, let me have something. So some have said that it could have been the result of what we just saw. Maybe they did it to someone and so on and so on, and then the Air Force person said, come on, I mean, the person, why this and so on. Then, but for me, I think it's high time we look into this situation. In other countries, Senate climbs, we're not saying that the security forces don't go at each other, but it's hard to see it happen.
Very hard.
In Nigeria, it's happened way too much. It's like every year, I can tell you this, every year. I just went through the report. In 2003, we saw this happen. In 2022, it happened. 2004 as well. If you go through it, it just happens every now and then. And the reason nobody is saying anything, guess what? It's just going to go down the drain. Everybody say, okay, it's fine. They were just fighting. What if they pulled the trigger?
Exactly.
What if?
Accidental discharge.
That's another one. Anyway,
we really need to do something about it. It's become one too many, and it's absolutely disgraceful, as I said earlier. But moving on to our neighboring country to the east. Yes, Cameroon. Happy birthday, President Paul Biya. He turns 92 and is a record-holding head of state. Is the world's oldest head of state. But that's
Guinness has he gone
Guinness
for Guinness
Book of Records. But that's not even the gist. He's 92, is fit. I mean, he's fit in quotes. And he wants to, I mean, if you're not fit, why do you want to go for re-election? That should be like his, how many terms? And now, elections are coming up in October, and President Paul Biya has indicated his interest to run for State House in Cameroon. And a lot of people find it shocking. I mean, there are other 90-year-olds plus. I mean, Donald Trump is 78, is still fit, is agile. I remember Dr. Mahathir Mohamad of Malaysia. He became prime minister for the second time when he was 90, but he was fit. And if you look at videos of Paul Biya in international fora, but he seems to be lost and disconnected from reality. Sometimes he doesn't even remember where he is. So I'm wondering what's going on in Cameroon. They have young, brilliant men and women. We even know some like force of nature, Kathleen. Can they run for office?
Bingo.
I don't know why you guys are that. I don't know why.
In case you're wondering who that is, that's an in-house joke. Benga is applauding one of our colleagues, leaders here at New Central. But I mean, I don't think it's very surprising. We see that African leaders tend to hold on to power a little too long. The most thrown around quote that we've used on this show is power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. There's a thing with feeling like power is something that should be inherited and transferred, and this mentality of it's my turn to hold on to power, it's my turn to grasp power. We see power as a thing that should be held on to against or fought for, inherited and passed over to the next generation, as you would see in some other African countries. 92. Uganda is not an exception. We've seen how Uganda has been run in the past few years and the projections of what the future might look like in Uganda. But then again, congratulations, happy birthday to Paul Biya, but we need to do better on our continent.
The people love him, Joe, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, the people,
they have to love you for you to.
You're not a Cameroonian, so you can't speak for Cameroon.
We would have to ask Kathleen.
Well, yes, but, I mean, if you ask them, some of them would say it's tough. Somebody who is as old as Paul Biya, President Paul Biya, should actually be relaxing, chilling somewhere in the Bahamas, after hard work of, moving the country forward. He should rest. But if we take this to Twitter, it's going to be Twitter wars between Nigeria and Cameroon.
I'm sure the Cameroonians would agree.
Our president is not 92. 2 years.
Yes, but of course, they're going to put pictures side by side. You know that conversation we usually have on Twitter, I mean, the X wars. We don't want to go there. But I think I get your point, Binga. It's a very, very salient point. But then again, we cannot speak for the Cameroonians. I think they would have to make their choices and possibly live with it.
Well, as Gen Zs would say, President Paul Biya is giving me Tusela vibes.
He's not giving what he's meant to give at this point. Anyway, guys, can you smell it?
What do you smell?
Love is in the air. You got it, Benga.
And it depends on what part of the country
Honestly?
you're from. I mean, if you're from the southwest, they will say love is in the hair.
In the hair. Wow. In this parts, and particularly in Edo State, love is in the air. And in the spirit of Valentine, reports have it that music legend official Subaba, Two-Face Idibia, Innocent Idibia, whichever you'd like to call him, has now just proposed to a leader of, in the House of Assembly, in the Edo State House of Assembly. Now, the name Natasha Osarawu will become very popular, or has become very popular, not because of the reformative work she's done in the House of Assembly, but because of certain reasons. Let's take a look at this video of Two-Face.
What's up, man? So allegedly I've been seeing so many things, so many people coming up with their own false narratives and false talk and malicious nonsense after I posted that stuff that I posted. Yes, I posted what I posted, and any person will get breathe, they understand, But for all of the people that have been saying different stuff that do not have any absolute clue of what's going on, I hear you now, in a life perfect guy, not too much, you understand? See, everybody's going to be alright, everybody's fine. There's no fights, there's no quarrel, there's nothing. I said what I said. All of us will be alright. And all of us are working to do bigger and better things. You understand what I'm saying? And Honorable Natasha, I see she has been dragged, she has been called all sorts of names, she has been labeled as a homebreaker, she is a young, brilliant, amazing young woman. You understand what I'm saying? And she had nothing to do with, what's happening between me and Annie in our marriage. She has absolutely nothing to do with that. But I see everybody allegedly trying to, rope her into everything. Yes, I love her. She's amazing. She's cool. I want to marry her. You understand what I'm saying? So that on one side. Then on the other side, man, yeah, and Annie, we don't fight.
Well, it would seem that wedding bells are ringing, as the latest update is that Two-Face Innocent Idibia allegedly proposed to Natasha Osarawu.
You're using his words to allegedly.
Allegedly.
Catch the vibe, get the feeling.
Wisdom. Well, he's calling her Ole because she stole his heart away.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's the new African queen.
Yes.
Now, jokes apart, all of this may sound really funny. I mean, this was a post he put up. Before he pulled it down, it was a post and delete. Says, now this is my world, make una help me beg him to marry me. Turns out he didn't need to do a lot of begging, as eventually he's in a show, I don't know where that was set up, there was a video of him spraying her money. I'm hoping that's not Naira. And then eventually proposing to her. It was just really romantic, some would say, between the lovebirds. But Nigerians have reacted differently. A lot of people have been enraged by what's been going on, especially because of the fact that he only recently just announced his separation and impending divorce from his wife, Annie Idibia.
Ex-wife.
No, they're not yet divorced. Until they're divorced, she's his wife. Annie Idibia.
Legally speaking.
Yes, she's still his wife. And, the reason why Nigerians have been enraged by how this has been handled is he hasn't been very gracious with her. First of all, she was being trashed after appearing on a reality TV show, Young and African. And after the reality TV show, a number of Nigerians were talking about how so many things, I don't want to go into that, but she was being spoken about not in a positive light, and that was certainly not the time for Two-Face to throw her under the bus. I'm reminded of a story in the scriptures where Joseph was told that his wife, Mary, imagine somebody come to tell you I'm being impregnated and pregnant by an angel, a story that doesn't make sense. And Joseph sought to put her away quietly, a testament to his character. He had every right to be upset, but he didn't trash her in the public. Imagine that was happening today. So I guess that's the sentiment that a lot of Nigerians are sharing, that he hasn't been very kind and gracious to her.
The timing too.
The timing wasn't great, and it's unfortunate that Natasha Osarawu will now not be remembered for the amazing work she may or may not have done in the House, especially as we talk about the underrepresentation of women in politics and the fact that we don't have enough women sitting at these tables. She'll be remembered now as the other woman.
Now, what I hope she does, so Two-Face, marriage is supposed to improve you, is meant to make you a better person, but she's the deputy majority leader in the Edo State House of Assembly. I wish she was the chief whip so she can whip some sense into Two-Face Idibia and it will become an overall better person.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just my message.
Shots fired.
Well, the truth is, guys, whether we like it or not, everyone seems to have an opinion, and like many have said, it's a court of public opinion, and that's what social media has become. But I think it's also a case of allowing people to do what they want to do. Let's bear in mind that nobody, myself, Olive, Benga, even you watching us, nobody has 100% information of what the story really is.
True.
So what we see is plain circulation. And in that video, that's why Two-Face said, allegedly. People are alleging. And people don't know the story. And I think it's also a call to some of the rumor mongers, as it were, because you might wonder, why are we talking about this? Because, of course, we do have someone who is representing Edo State, who is in Edo State, rather, and she's actually being called out because it's one thing to actually represent your state in one way or the other in the public eyes, and then you're also delving into it. So if you go to entertainment, you see her. You go to the general news, you would see her. So everybody's asking, what is she doing? Is she not rubbing, in quotes, mud on her name? But then again, listen, people would have to do what they have to do. They have to live their lives. And I think the problem I have with this story is the fact that everyone seems to be a professional explaining what is too.
I mean, if you put your business,
exactly, you put your business out there, people are going to have opinions.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, this is not Kim Kardashian, who has a reality series. They don't have a reality series.
No, Joe. So he came out to do videos explaining to the public. He owed nobody that explanation. So if he has invited the public into his private life,
I agree.
Actions do have consequences. True. He must be able to live with the consequences.
I agree. But then again, it's for me, it's a case of people now sitting down, putting on the ring light. I mean, you know,
to be honest,
it's fair game. It's what happens around the world. Anyway, I just want to say Two-Face is romantic because it was at the Edo State House of Assembly the other day. It was in the okay, but
look at them blushing. No, this is quite a long video. If we're going to take it, we're not going to be able to take our top stories. Okay. But just to explain what you would see, there's a bit of hugging at some point. He sprays her some bills. I don't know what currency because it's not clear enough in the video. They hug. He sort of sings for her. People are in the background shouting, "Oh!" Association of say yes, say yes. And in the spirit of Valentine, we're probably going to see people saying "God when," and having the God when gang tapping. Oh.
Olive, I don't see you saying "oh."
No.
You are not awing the focus.
No, I'm not awing them.
Oh. Let me help you. Oh.
Isn't it amazing how it would seem that when Yul Edochie had his own scenario, the reactions were
different.
I don't know if I would say different. It just seems like, because Two-Face was nobody just imagined that it would be Two-Face. Of course, they knew that he never had the perfect marriage because their marriage was always in the public eye, but people just didn't think it was going to turn out this way.
Anyway, don't forget, guys, that she's the Deputy Majority Leader of Edo State House of Assembly, and she's been in the public eye for so much, or I'd say for so long, especially of recent.
A brief background. She was born in November 1993. She's the daughter of Desmond Osarawu and Philomena Osarawu, and the granddaughter of Chief Gabriel Osarawu Igbenedion, a prominent businessman and philanthropist.
Okay.
So yes, from a very...
Anyway, in all of this, I just want to drop my final few points. I think as time goes by, it will become clearer, especially with the stories, and that has got to do with Annie Idibia as well, will become clearer. But I also think we might just run through the story, but we'll wait until they decide to give us a full detail of what the situation truly is. But
And
now,
just to say that, you know, at the end of the day, we know that no marriage is perfect, and people sometimes show the parts of you that they want to see. Obviously, it's been a turbulent time for Annie, Idibia, and in this case, Two-Face. We don't know, again, the full picture, but we just hope that everyone, we wish them the best in the future. It might be a painful one, but there is healing at the other side. Right now, Annie seems to be the one who's been burnt from the information that we have, but we hope that she's able to find healing, and that, you know, we wish everyone the best.
We wish everyone the best. I mean, tariffs are going up. If you put your business out there, they'll talk about it. We'll move on.
That's right. Anyway, let's go straight to our top stories for today on a Thursday morning.
You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, the controversial tax reform bills presented to the National Assembly by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has passed a second reading on the floor of the House of Representatives following overwhelming support from lawmakers. The debate on the four consolidated tax reform bills had been suspended twice, and the bills received criticism from some lawmakers and governors of some states. News Central's correspondent Edon Joseph reports.
Leading the debate on the four consolidated bills after multiple suspensions in November and December last year due to controversies surrounding the proposed reforms, the majority leader of the House, Julius Ehonvere, says that the bills, if passed, will improve revenue mobilization, protect low-income earners, and create a competitive environment for investments.
But suffice to say that these reforms for individuals, for the ordinary Nigerian, the youth, families will benefit extensively, because for the first time there will be a complete exemption of low-income workers earning up to 1 million naira per annum.
The Nigeria Tax Bill, the Tax Administration Bill, the Joint Revenue Board Establishment, and the Nigeria Revenue Service Bill were transmitted by President Bola Tinubu on October the 3rd, 2024. However, they faced opposition from many lawmakers and northern state governors. This time, lawmakers overwhelmingly supported the proposed reforms, stating that the delay in debate allowed for a thorough review of the merit and demerit of the bills.
And this particular bill, I want to note, has made adequate provision for having more of the VAT proceed going to state government from what used to be the share of the federal government, from 15% to 10%, which I think is very, very commendable.
Section 164, sub 4A and B provides exemptions and reliefs for additional employment for companies. This bill proposes a 50% discount or rebate for them, and it's a way of improving employment opportunity for our teeming unemployed.
I want to also concur with my colleagues as we remain silent and also go through the bill. We find it worthy for it to be read for the second time.
Despite their support, some lawmakers raised concerns over specific clauses in the bills that may conflict with the Constitution.
They have not stated clearly whether they mean by consumption derivation or derivation based on generation.
The funds generated should be channeled towards amenities, basic amenities that will enhance the livelihood in our country.
After an extensive deliberation that lasted several hours on the tax reform bills, which were the main subject of the day's legislative proceedings, the House referred the four bills to the Committee on Finance for further legislative action. In Abuja for News Central, I am Edon Joseph.
I'm surprised this bill has passed the second reading. I'm sure you remember the hullabaloo that came when this bill was introduced. People were fighting tooth and nail. They said it was an agenda against a certain section of the country. But we've seen maturity in our democracy. They've gone to consult. The head of the Presidential Tax Commission has done a lot of consultation, has moved around the country to explain that, look, this would be in the best interest. of our country. And it's good to see that, you know, it's past the second.
We probably would not have gotten to this point of him having to go around the country to consult with everybody if, according to him, he had reached out to them when this was in the process of being established or being put together. He'd reached out to them to come for like a stakeholder, you know, meeting, but they weren't showing up. So we wouldn't have done this back and forth over and over again and just lagging behind literally. Another thing to wonder is if this would impact President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's chance at second tenure in 2027, right?
Yeah, I think the positives to this bill, it's a progressive type of bill in the sense that people that have been avoiding taxes will pay, and that the rich would be forced to pay more taxes. The big question is, because there's always a trust deficit between the government and the governed, is what would they use all this revenue for? And if you've been reading the news, following the news, it's almost like there's a revenue drive.
Everybody's increasing, looking for
exactly. Customs,
they give them
even
deadline.
had to, you know, call back the budget to add money to it because we had so much money. But the ordinary Nigerian will be wondering, okay, all this money is, what are they using it for? We really can't feel the impact. So Nigerians need to start seeing, government needs to show working. And they need to translate that working to the common man. They need to carry them along, let them understand that, look, we're working on X projects, Y projects, so people don't feel, you know, the government is just there to enrich themselves. They need to communicate policies.
I completely agree with you in the era of the trust deficit. Whilst that is one reason why a number of people evade tax, and I mean, we will always compare, for example, to the United Kingdom, where, yes, the tax can be heavy the more you earn, but you're seeing the infrastructure. You're not spending so much on transportation because there's a working transport system within the United Kingdom. You're seeing the other areas in which your tax is, you know, working. However, I think the other cause of concern would be, are there still going to be people who will find ways to manipulate the system and evade tax? Because it's not going to be a situation where, because if it's taxing the rich, that means the richer people, the politicians and all these people who Nigerians just assume have, not just assume, but Nigerians know have a lot of money. Are they going to find ways and loopholes to be able to shortchange the system?
Troubleshot that sort of scenario to see where to plug loopholes and all of that. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. But on to other news. The Nigerian Labour Congress has vowed to shut down telecom operations nationwide from March the 1st if the recent 50% hike is not reversed. In a communique signed by President Joe Ajero and General Secretary Ima Ogwaja, the union accused telecom firms of breaching trust by implementing the increase before government-led review was completed. The NLC insists on an immediate return to previous rates.
So now let's give you a background of what you should know about this development. The NLC has rejected the 50% telecom tariff hike, calling it a violation of an agreement with the government and demanding a reversal. If this hike is not reversed by 29th of February 2025, the NLC will shut down telecom operations nationwide from March 1st. Nigerians are urged to boycott MTN, Airtel and Glo services daily from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. between February 13th and February 29th, 2025. The NLC accuses the government of failing to protect citizens from corporate exploitation and demands strict regulation. Let's discuss this with Comrade Ismail Adejumo, who is the NLC Lagos Chapter PRO. Good morning, Comrade Adejumo. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. Now, the NLC, you've rejected this, calling it a violation of the agreement with the government. Can you give us details of what this agreement with the government was about and, you know, what the terms were?
Thank you very much. You will recall vividly that the hike in tariff of telecom has been a contentious issue recently, apart from the electricity that we are battling with side by side. Now, when we proposed a protest about almost 2 weeks ago, a week to 2 weeks ago, to press the government and the telecom operators to revert this policy that is very untimely and is very insensitive at this time, the government quickly waged by trying to mediate and provide a solution of setting up a committee, technical committee of 10 people to review and work out the veracity and the justification for the increase and report back within 2 weeks. This has not lapsed completely, only for us to hear that the government, the telecom operator have come up with another tariff, most especially as related to data, while they are waiting to implement calls and SMS any moment from March. We as a labor movement, we are very reasonable people. We believe in dialogue, we believe in negotiation, we believe in superior argument before we go on the streets or we begin to invoke the common instrument that government understand, which is to strike, to down tool. But before we get there, the leadership of the labor movement have been involved now in this negotiation. They have not concluded this negotiation. This committee have not submitted a report, and they are coming up suddenly in between. It's like shifting the goalposts at the middle of the game. That is not acceptable by the labor leadership, by Nigerian workers and the masses of this country. It's very, very insensitive, and we will never take that from them. I think the leadership will be meeting anytime soon to, apart from the boycott of course and all those means, to press our demand that this policy is anti-people, and the rate at which they have their tariff is not even suitable at this very time that Nigerians are struggling to survive,
now,
to earn a lively means, a decent life. So we want them to revert. We want them to revert it back and give room for negotiation and proper dialogue so that at least we'll have an amicable resolution.
Now, Comrade Adejumo, was there any sort of dialogue between the federal government, the telecom operators, and the labor union before resorting to this boycott? And how does the NLC expect this boycott to impact telecom operators? Could you shed more light on the sort of boycott you're recommending? I reckon it's for just a few hours, and the reasoning behind the boycott.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is another tools, another ways and means of telling them that Nigerians are not people they can just take for granted. They live and survive with our daily patronage. If Nigerians did not patronize them, I don't see where they can be declaring that among us profit year in, year out. You will recollect that most of these telecom operators have been complaining that cost of production and everything has gone up. Quite frankly and honestly, we share in their sentiment and their situation that at least there is need at this time for a reasonable upward review to justify the inflationary rate and so many other cost of production and other running costs. But not to the level of proposing almost 50 and above increase when government is coming with all sorts of taxes that can even strangulate Nigerians. Because at the time they are saying Nigeria should allow Nigeria to breathe. We have passed that level now, and Nigeria can no longer breathe. They are highly suffocated. They are getting to a point whereby they want to strangulate us. People cannot survive. So how can you imagine if you are buying data as high as what they are proposing today? How do you want people to communicate? Data usage is one of the means by which people, genuine and decent Nigerians, create content online from the comfort of their home when there is no job. Now you are taking that away from them. So the dialogue along this line will be ongoing. We have been engaging government that you cannot stifle our means of communication. If you cannot communicate freely, how do you want information to be to cascade down to the grassroots? People in the rural too, need this means of communication to get abreast with the development in the urban. So by the time you are now taking it out of their reach, how do you want the society to people will now be living on falsehood? They cannot get fact-check information timely. So it is very, very dangerous for our democracy, for us as a nation. We plead with the government and all the regulators and the stakeholders in the telecom to consider this, because dialogue is our own ways of resolving issues. But when we are overstretched and we are taking too much for granted, then we will resort to by boycotting. If we boycott a day by not calling and not using data, you will recollect that even the DSTV, times they will be calling you that you have not subscribed, they have their target. If you boycott them,
Comrade Adejumo,
and they will realize
Comrade Adejumo, do you genuinely believe?
And they have to be
Comrade Adejumo, if you can hear me, I'd like to
right.
please interject at this point. Do you genuinely believe that the NLC and Nigerians can actually boycott telecoms operators? Our lives have revolved around the use of internet. So if you tell Nigerians to boycott this service providers, people work from home remotely, people have to make calls. How do you really expect that to pan out? This just sounds like mere talk. It's why we are asking, what exactly is, the ask? You've asked for them to revert. So what exactly is the boycott going to look like? Are you going to tell people not to make calls? Or they're not going to go on social media? They're not going to join their Zoom meetings? What is it going to look like, really? And is it just not maybe mere talk?
Thank you very much. We know the global trend now is to work remotely and work smartly. After the COVID, everybody knows that the global world is now, working remotely. People, even you realize that government also gives some days off to cushion the effect of this inflation and the subsidy removal. We know it's going to inflict some pains on us, but I can assure Nigerians that no gain, no pain.
Oh.
There cannot be any sustainable gain without some pain. We have to exercise some sacrifice.
All right.
Observe some sacrifice to revive this country and to get us out of the hand of these bourgeois who are ready to strangulate life from us. So we need to reduce. If we are subscribing, let me say, for instance, you are buying a data of about maybe 10,000 or 5,000. You can reduce to 1,000. Do some minor transaction with it for now in solidarity.
All right.
We as a labor movement, when we are going on strike, it doesn't come easy for us.
Comrade Adejumo, we have to go now.
Sacrifice so many things.
Comrade Adejumo, unfortunately, we have to end the conversation. We have to go now. Nigerians certainly get the picture. We hope that the government comes to some sort of agreement with labor union, and that going forward, we can have labor involved in a number of these policies, so they're not rolled out, and then labor comes and says we're not involved along the line, and then start reacting. So we're hoping that we can see more proactive measures being taken. Thank you very much, Comrade Ismail Adejumo, for joining us on the conversation this morning.
My pleasure always.
All right, we'll now have to move the conversation to another angle. Let's talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria and its recent announcement concerning the revision of its automated teller machine transaction fees, which, of course, have eliminated the 3 free monthly withdrawals previously granted to customers using other banks' ATMs. Outlined in a circular dated February 10, 2025, this new directive applies to all banks and financial institutions operating in Nigeria.
Here are a few things you should know. On us transactions, same bank's ATM, customers withdrawing from their own bank's ATM will continue to enjoy free withdrawal. Not on us transactions, other banks' ATMs, on-site ATMs within bank premises, a fee of 100 per 20,000 withdrawal will apply. 100 naira per 20,000 withdrawal will apply. Off-site ATMs outside bank premises, a fee of 100 naira per 20,000 withdrawal plus an additional surcharge of up to 500 naira will be charged. What are the implications of this on the pocket of an average Nigerian? Joining us to break this down is Kalu Aja. Welcome to you, sir, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, when you did this circular, this new policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria, did it come to you as a surprise? What's your reaction, your initial reaction when you saw this?
Yeah, the surprise is that the ATMs don't work generally. If you go to the ATMs in Nigeria, you don't see cash in the ATM. So to increase the costs to take out cash from machines that don't work is a bit strange, I would have hoped that the CBN would have enforced all ATMs working, and then perhaps introduce, because of inflation or energy costs, we want to maybe allow the bank to recoup some costs back by charging more on the ATM. So you look at the cart before the horse. But overall, it's just more cost to the Nigerian household and to your budget. They're going to have to pay more to get out cash and all that. So then you don't use cash. Maybe that's where the CBN is going to discontinue or to discourage use of cash in the economy. Perhaps that's their real goal.
But are we really ready for the digital economy that has been preached for the longest time? Just before you joined the conversation, NLC is threatening to go on strike if we don't revert to the tariffs that were used by the internet service providers. So are we really ready for this cashless economy that the CBN has been pushing for?
Yeah, we tried it before and we found out we weren't ready. You know, the system sort of crashed. Transfers couldn't keep up, internet couldn't keep up. So, you know, we have a long way to go towards this full non-cash banking. Nigeria is a very, very cash economy, especially when you leave, say, the cities of, say, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja. You go outside the cities, there's a lot of cash being used. So we're not ready yet. And again, the point is, if you go to the banks, most of the ATMs do not have cash. You have to go to the POS operators to get cash. So I think that should be the focus of the CBN, first of all, to say, let's even make the ATMs, let's make the banking sector work. Let's folks be able to go into the banks and get cash. If that is occurring, then you can talk about increasing the cost. So right now, it looks like they are basically saying, you're not going to get that service, and when you do get that service, we're going to charge you more. Doesn't really look like a sound plan on the face of it. Yeah.
Now, Kalu, oftentimes in recent past, the Central Bank of Nigeria has issued circulars to commercial banks that they should comply with its directive to stock their ATMs with cash. And we've also seen the proliferation of POS services. You mentioned earlier in your submission that we're sort of putting the cart before the horse. Now, if you were the CBN, and you could advise them, what measures would they need to take? Because it's the global best practices. If you go to South Korea, you will hardly see cash and other developing economies. What do they need to do to fully achieve a cashless society and make transactions more seamless? And also for those who need cash, to make it readily available.
You know, a long time ago, if you recall, we used to have bank ATMs outside the bank. So if you went to a restaurant or you went to the airport, you would have seen bank ATMs at those locations and you could get your cash and all that. The CBN reversed that policy a long time ago. So now you have unauthorized guys called POS operators. So in Nigeria, we look at them as job creation opportunities, where we have lots of youths under an umbrella with cash. You know, you don't see it in any economy apart from Nigeria. You know, it's a bit, I don't think we should have POS in the number scale that we have in Nigeria. And there's a direct correlation between cash in POS machines and cash in ATM machines. One would always win. If you've got cash in POS machines, I assure you, you're not going to have cash in the ATM machine. So Nigeria's going to sit back and say, if we want to pursue a $1 trillion economy, if we're going to be the largest economy, not just in terms of size, but sophistication and scope, do we need to have citizens going to take cash, buy and sell Naira cash under an umbrella, the name of financial inclusion? I don't think it makes sense. I think we have to go back to traditional banking. You know, let the banks be allowed to have ATMs outside the banks, then stock them. Then you can then, you know, hold the banks accountable to ensure those machines are fully stocked. Right now, it's just not working. The banks just don't have the means or the distribution networks to get this cash out. And, you know, there's no cash. So someone has to be held responsible for that. And which will reduce the scope and size of the POS rollout that we see in Nigeria.
I'd like you to speak a little, you know, to the POS that you've just mentioned. This point of service operators, like you said, some would argue that a number of them have been given jobs. Unfortunately, we saw the exploitation that Nigerians had to experience at the hands of POS operators when we had the Naira redesign program, and it seemed that a lot of them bought land from that during that period. But right now, the argument would be that if this happens, either the POS operators will find a way to stock up on cash, and we will be the ones to feel the impact from the POS operators. Or some would say, if this might kick them out of business, and then financial exclusion is still a challenge in Nigeria. So how do we find that balance?
Well, we've got to maybe do a bit of smarter regulation. The point I make is this: if you go to any country on earth, you cannot find banks without cash at ATMs and guys under umbrellas with cash. It just doesn't work. I get the unemployment angle. Lots of youths have those jobs now. The government advertises those jobs. Hey, we've created POS jobs. But it's just not sustainable for security, for operations, to have people selling and buying cash. You know, you can have folks that say, my job is to change money at weddings so you can spray. That's not a job, you know. I know people are employed there, but that's not really a job. So we've got to maybe be smart and say, okay, what can POS operators do? Can they maybe do payment systems where it's not that they're selling cash, but they're allowing financial inclusion by offering you, spreading out those terminals to small, medium-scale enterprises, very, very nano, small enterprises. But we just can't have that going on. It's very convenient. It's like Okada. Okada is very, very convenient, right? But you need to have a transportation network built on Okada. You're going to get an Okada from, say, Ikeja to CMS as a means of transportation. Nobody would say that it creates jobs, but no one's going to argue for that. So it's the same thing. POS is like an Okada system in the Nigerian financial system. We really shouldn't have it, but we have it because of the inefficiencies. So let's slowly take it away and make the banks and the non-bank guys basically work. We have eNaira. It's supposed to work without a bank account with your NIN operated phones. That should be the model. Let the phones that every Nigerian carries be its own POS. So that way you reduce the need of going to a central POS to get cash. Let the phones NIN with eNaira or whatever currency work. So that way you reduce that need for cash.
Now, Nigerians would like to know, because in the last 1 year or 2 years, they've been increase in tariffs, the removal of fuel subsidy, quite a lot. And it seems every other week there's a new policy to take money from people that are already struggling. What could be the rationale behind the central bank's charges? Is it that the banks use this extra money for maintaining their operations? Because Nigerians find it that they're struggling to understand the rationale behind it. And why is the central bank not protecting ordinary Nigerians and consumers like it should?
Yeah, I mean, the grapevine is not official. Just the grapevine says that the banks have argued that it's not the cost of maintaining the ATMs is high. So this is to make the banks recoup this operational cost to maintain stock and provide power to the ATMs. That's what I understand this policy is for. So to allow the bank to recoup the profit for maintaining ATMs, so that way they can then make sure these ATMs have cash. That's what I've heard. But the banks do make tons of money. And it's also in the bank's interest to have ATMs fully stocked with cash. So I think the best way to make the banks recover their money is to allow the banks to scale. You know, even if I have one branch, if I want to have 10,000 ATMs spread across Nigeria, I should be allowed to do so at the marketplace, at the malls, even with my one branch. So that way I'm recovering my cost from scaling my ATM operation, not just from charging each individual transaction a fee. So that's going to be another way we can do it. So that way that overall the bank costs come down because they have 10,000 ATMs, then charging or increasing the cost per withdrawal to the average Nigerian. There are many ways to skin a cat. The idea is to make the banks have cost-reflective tariffs and, of course, not to increase the cost on the average Nigerian. So we're going to be a bit more creative in thinking about this because it's more costs in an economy that's also under stagflation. So that's going to be less consumption by the households if all these tariffs and policies keep on happening.
Now, Mr. Kano, just before we let you go, we've seen a rise in proliferation of digital banks, online banks that seem to be a disruption to traditional banking. Is it a good thing for our economy?
Yeah, if it really disrupts the banking economy and provides competition and choice, it's a very, very good thing. For now, the loans, which is the main place we need to disrupt the banks from, only banks in Nigeria seem to give loans. But if you look at the data, less than 5% of Nigerians have gotten a loan from a commercial bank. So we need to have more non-banking institutions offering loans. I mean, small loans, the small daily loans that the market women use. That's what we need to really go out and disrupt so that we can get credit at the lower strata of the economy and that can jumpstart consumption and trade at that very, very low strata. The banks can focus on working capital to the multinationals, to the bigger corporations, but at that very, very base pyramid level, where those guys do not have access to traditional finance, we should allow the fintech guys to go there and offer loans, not double-digit loans, but those single-digit daily loans that most guys or traders need to get cash, sell, and then to do repayment. That's where we need the disruption. We need that increased competition at that base pyramid level. And then, of course, that allows the economy, the banks, and the non-fintech guys basically then compete, and then costs ultimately come down.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this story. However, my final question will be a slight deviation to a conversation that we had just before you joined, especially because now it feels like we're seeing increase in different areas, electricity tariff hike, telecoms tariff hike. Now, the NLC has threatened to go on a strike. They've asked Nigerians to boycott the use of certain telecom services from 11 a.m. to sometime during the day, and saying that if by the end of February they do not revert to what the previous rate was, that they'll be going on a total shutdown. So let's get your thoughts on the telecom's tariff hike and the NLC's position.
Well, that's not a serious position. You're not going to tell anyone to restrict use of telecom. Like you told the guests before, folks do Zoom, folks use their phone calls now at their bank. Folks, how are they going to stop using telecoms? The telecom guys are increasing costs because they've not been allowed to increase costs for years now. So diesel price has gone up. They maintain base stations. They haven't been allowed to increase the cost of phone calls to match the cost of providing those calls to Nigerians. It's not really a profit grab. It's just a grab. It's just maybe a cost increase to recover costs that they have already spent to provide those services to Nigerians. So if you boycott them and they go away, who's going to replace them? There's no Nitel again, right? So we're going to be a bit more careful. NLC needs to be a bit more strategic in what fights they take on. Why are they only focused on GSM operators? I think it's, and they don't have, but the strategy just seems a bit off to me. Boycott GSM calls. They create the jobs, they create the revenues, they create the productivity in the economy. If you boycott them, what happens? If your sister calls you, you don't pick up, or you don't attend your Zoom, or how does that mean? So he won't take a call himself speaking. So that's not a serious proposal from NLC. A bit disappointing from them. You should get more serious in how they want to address the issues of the real cost increase in their contracts, causing the MTNs and the Airtels to also hike their costs. Focus on the problem. Don't grandstand.
Quite frankly, that I was struggling as well to see how the shutdown will work, because I mean, if they start the shutdown, how are you going to join us via Zoom to be a part of this interview?
How am I supposed to wish my wife happy Valentine's Day tomorrow?
Kalu Aja, thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Take care.
You as well. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's now review the front pages of the newspaper. We're joined this morning by Wade Ahimian. Good morning and happy Valentine in advance.
I'm even glad that they called me in today, so I don't have to come tomorrow.
It's true. You should have come tomorrow.
That means I don't have to wear anything red tomorrow.
Big guy must wear red tomorrow.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's great to be here every time.
Great to have you here as well. Now let's start with the Daily Independent. Reps passed controversial tax reform bills for second reading. Tinubu's tax regime choking workers bearing the brunt, NLC says. We also have here, Tinubu plans to mainstream AI to expand digital infrastructure. I saw that when that, was on Twitter yesterday, people were like, does he know that UCH doesn't have lights? Anyway, we'll talk about that much later. PDP NWC divided over affirmation of Ude Okoye as national scribe. Anyanwu Autumn, others Sean Ikimi-led disciplinary panel. Gunmen open fire on soldiers in Rivers community. We also have IFC's $50 million equity investment in Lagos Free Zone thrills Tinubu. Catholic bishops decry rising food insecurity, herdsmen attacks. And we have a final, interesting, Independent Award, an inspiration to do more. Governor, I thought they gave it to Governor Sule. Okay, I misread that. Tariff hike, NLC ask workers and citizens to boycott telco services 3 hours daily. Why will you boycott?
I don't understand. How do I own business if I boycott?
You're doing it out of patriotism, fighting for the masses.
For the right of the average man. Throw away your phone for 3 hours, and it will help with, rest and...
Well, if you're owing money, it's a nice
I shut down my phone when I'm tired, so that
so you can align your tiredness with NLC strike time to show...
11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yes, thereabouts.
I don't understand. At the peak of work.
Okay.
They don't understand.
Wow. Okay.
Let's take a look at the Punch newspapers. ACF, Tinubu's re-election. ACF others tackle Ganduje over no vacancy comment. Babachir hints at North's consensus candidate as ACF Mohammed Kanta APC chair. That's the Arawa Consultative Forum. I mean, the Tinubu administration is not even halfway through its term, and we're already talking about 2027. Interesting developments there. Now, tariff hike. Labor subscribers plan telcos shut down March 1st. We touched on that before. Tax reform Reps divided as bills scale first reading. And federal government may ban trucks as tanker fire claims 493 lives. We've talked about this a few times before, but does it mean throwing out the baby with the bathwater? Do you have to ban tanker drivers, ban tankers? How are you going to move haulage, move products from depots to these stations? It would be nice to get details of that from The Punch. And also on the front page, Tony Elumelu Foundation partners UAE entities to empower African entrepreneurs. And at the bottom of the Punch newspaper, we have APC hires private firm for membership e-registration. Great news there for APC supporters. And hoodlums in court for abducting policeman in Kano. And finally, we have Rep summon Customs CG over officers' retirement. That's a very interesting story. I stumbled upon it yesterday. There are people in the customs that should have gone on retirement and they just refuse to leave. So the reps have summoned the Customs Comptroller General, who's also up for retirement, to explain the situation. I guess they love serving their land, their fatherland so much that they don't even want to go into retirement. That's what you call we died here.
We died here. Anyway, okay. Our final paper is in this Nigeria newspaper. Maybe if we have some time later, I'll take the first news as well. On the front page of this Nigeria, federal government targets elimination of cervical cancer by 2030. To concentrate on preventive measures, plans to extend screening immunization to rural communities. Wike lauds communities for supporting projects and project execution in FCT. UNIZIC begins probe as female students bites lecturer. Nance condemns act.
Is that some act of cannibalism?
It's giving vampire behavior.
It's giving Luis Suarez vibes.
I like that, Binga.
SEDC sets $200 billion target to grow Southeast economy within 10 years time frame. Tax reform bills pass second reading. Actually, I think we should quickly squeeze in the first newspaper because I really do like the front pages of the first newspaper. The big story there says, dark days again, power grid collapse plunges Nigeria into darkness twice in 2025. Nigeria eyes AI dominance as Tinubu, Google seal landmark tech deal. 14 million Nigerians addicted to harmful drugs, NDLEA say. Anambra government seals Okija shrine. Only Tinubu can replace NDDC MD, federal government tells political agitators. PDP NWC confirms Ude Okoye as national sec, ends leadership dispute. Reps probe customs boss over officers' alleged refusal to retire. Tariff hike. Shun telecom services, 3 hours daily. NLC urges Nigerians. Baba moves on fast. Sparks romance balls with Edo lawmaker after Annie split in the spirit of Valentine.
And 14 million Nigerians.
Yeah, 14 million Nigerians addicted to harmful drugs according to NDLEA. I'm going to ignore that Baba story. Maybe by the time we come to the end of the show, if we have some time, we will speak about it with Wade, seeing that Natasha is a deputy majority whip.
Deputy majority leader.
Deputy majority leader, sorry, in the House of Assembly in your state. So, you know, just to see how very excited you are about such news. Anyway.
That's their personal life. If Baba wants to marry anybody after his divorce,
he's not divorced yet, though.
But he's in the process.
Anyway, we'll talk about that later. That's not the crux of this conversation. Let's start with Power Grid. I want us to start with Power Grid as quickly as we can because 29th of May is around the corner. We have the ministerial screening. No, is this screening? No, there's score sheets.
Score sheet.
Yeah,
yes.
The ministerial score sheet will be presented again. The reports have it that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is breathing down the necks of the ministers for them to go and share with citizens what they've been doing.
Deliver.
And deliver. At the last ministerial screening, part of the criticism leveled against that particular exercise was the fact that Adebayo Adelabu was still left as Minister of Power. Many people argued that in the reshuffling, he should either maybe have been reshuffled or fired. In fact, majority of what we heard was that he should have been fired. Do you think that at the next ministerial screening, his performance will maybe implicate whether he will still remain a minister?
That's a tough question.
The score sheet, yes.
Yeah, I understand the score sheet, and I'm trying to think through it. Whether power has really been better or worse under him. Yes, they've had more grid collapse. And I guess a major part of that is because of the fact that you're trying to push more power through the grids. I know towards the end of the last administration into this administration, they've tried to increase the transmission capacity by building new transmission lines to about 8,000 megawatts. I don't know if they've reached that, but I know there is investment in that. So part of it will be if they have that, if they have the new ones and you're pushing power, so much more power through the grid, old ones who can't take it will start to collapse. I would have to do a bit more
research on that. But just looking at the president's ministers holistically, we're almost at the 2-year mark. And some will argue that 2 years is not enough to show reforms, to see the results of reforms. What's your response to that?
2 years is not enough to
show the result of reforms, that sometimes changes take time.
Well, I'm not the expert, but the experts have said this could take 10 to 15 years. We heard it from the IMF. We've heard it from the World Bank. So those are the experts who are pushing, they have their own pushing for reforms. And when these reforms come into place, let's also remember, we've gone through so many types of reforms in Nigeria. The structural adjustment program, it wasn't an overnight reform structure. So there are a number of them. And at the end of the day, it's not, there are short-term, medium-term, and long-term plans. So the first thing is actually to put the policies in place and see how you're implementing them. When you look at overall for ministerial performance, the only one person that comes to head every time to me is the Minister for Internal Affairs.
Interior.
Yes, Interior. Yeah. What I see, what I hear, he's done so much in terms of just trying to get Nigeria into e-travels that it just gladdens my heart.
What about Nyesom Wike, apart from his fights with Fubara? I mean, looking at him as FCT minister.
Well, yes, he's done a lot in terms of ensuring that road constructions are being done, which is very critical. Well, that's his job. And when I hear governments and what's it called, whether it's state or federal, oh, we've done this road, we've done that road, that's your primary role. So what's the big deal?
You're not supposed to give you flowers and chocolates.
I'm not supposed to score you 10 over 10 for doing your, if you do the extras, then that's fine. You know, Wike too, when they said, when he was the governor of Rivers State, people said, oh, he was a real projects man. But that's his job, to create the infrastructure so that businesses and social life can continue and generate the revenues that need to be taxed to bring government revenue. And that's just it.
Now, still looking at the front pages, there's a story there, and I find it quite shocking. 14 million Nigerians addicted to hard drugs. That's quite a huge number. That 14 million is the entire population of a few West African countries put together. Where do you think we're getting it wrong? And is there enough fight and bite in the fight against drugs? Because when NAFDAC speaks, they speak about adulterated drugs. It's not mostly about, I guess it's the purview, it's the NDLEA that should be fighting drugs, the Ministry of National Orientation and Information. What have you?
Let me start with the saying that the idle mind is the devil's workshop. Where you live in a country where there's so much economic impoverishment, people find other ways to try and get, escape and get the desire to do a few things. So you found out that more and more young people, even more middle-aged people have turned to drugs. Some is social, but a lot of them have become addicted to it. And that's the challenge with starting something. You know, addiction can be very easy. Is it something that needs to be tackled, or should plans be put in place? Plans should have been put in place a long time ago to tackle them. But I think it has gotten to a stage whereby if 14 million Nigerians are addicted to hard drugs, then that's, and when we say 14 million, so they are either young adults or youths or even middle-aged adults who are supposed to be those in the labor force of this country. And that for me is alarming.
There's another story that appeared in a number of headlines. And this is quite shocking, and for good reason. It made it to the front page of these papers. Reps probe customs boss over officers' alleged refusal to retire. I mean, in the history of Nigeria, I don't think we've seen this sort of thing happen until recently, first with the Inspector General of Police and now the customs boss. Now it's not just the customs boss and a few of his colleagues that are higher ups in the customs. Is there no, what happened to the Civil Service Commission? Are there no automatic mechanisms to like clock you out of the system? You've reached 35 years, you've reached 60 years of age, or are these guys remaining in the customs because of the love they have for the job and their will to serve our great nation, Nigeria?
I do have a different perspective when people talk about retirement from government. When those laws were put in, Nigeria was barely how old? It was during my father's time, who at 25 was already working for the government.
Yeah, DHS Spiff was governor at 25.
That's my point. So 35 years made you 60. But we've seen today in the world or across the world, more and more countries are pushing retirement age for 60. Those to 65, some countries to 70, because you still do require those experiences. What happens in a system where, like I said, where you have so much economic impoverishment, these people leave and really don't have so much more to do, but there's so much they can contribute to the system.
And the pensions are quite meager.
Yeah. Well, let's even leave the pensions. That's a different story entirely. But my point is, if you can contribute to the system, I do think that the federal government and the National Assembly needs to sit down and look at the civil service reforms in terms of retirement. Because sometimes what then happens is that some of these people are brought back as consultants. Not all of them, some of them. But they can still contribute to the system. They can contribute to new spaces
people
that are being
would
created.
argue that you're increasing the burden, the recurrent expenditure that you spend on salaries, and you're just over bloating the system.
If in the reality of how governance is meant to run, are you with me? You focus on more from a perspective of being the regulator, are you with me, and things like that, then that cost wouldn't be a major issue. If we start to produce the kind of goods and services that would generate the revenues or the taxes or the opportunities that Nigeria should be able to generate revenue. So why would it be an issue for people who are going to ensure that regulatory compliance and government policy implementation, are you with me, are not only wise enough, but also understand how the system goes between public and private sector? So when you retire a whole multitude of people at 60, because they've turned 60, some of them in governance for maybe 15, 20 years, they joined the service at 40, some of them at 35, are you with me? Because these days, that's the average age of joining some of these things, because some people go do some other things before you join them. So you've done 25 years and you find out that there's so much more you can add. But of course, at 60, you have to go. And then you're bringing in the new rookies who have to tackle a number of other things. And let's also remember that those in government, those who work in the ministries, are not just working in Nigeria. The diplomatic relationships, policy implementations from bilateral agreements and so on and so forth. So are you going to throw a rookie into that system?
Yeah,
and then what you find out is, like I said, is that you bring them in as consultants and increase the cost of running governance.
I mean, there are surgeons that work late into their 70s. You look at Supreme Court justices.
And that's my point. So if the Supreme Court justices can go to 70 and can still deliver, are you with me? Create more courts. That's one. Create an environment where production is the key. Production and quality service delivery is the key. And then you find out that more businesses are coming out. More small businesses create a system that takes out the informal economy and brings it into the formal economy, so I can generate those revenues for you to have people, seasoned people who are developing the next generation of leaders into having the proper regulatory
energy of the youth and the wisdom of the
you always do.
Old.
You always do.
Okay, let's move away and talk a little politics. Let's talk about the drama going on with the PDP. There's a smile on your face. But before we get into that, let's take this call from Abuja. Good morning, David. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Olive. My name is Tuleni, not David.
Oh, thank you for the clarification.
I don't want to remember with Nigerian issue. Please, I would just want to plead with the FCT minister to fix this street light from Gwarimpa to Zuba. That's about 35 kilometers of distance. That place is becoming very dangerous. It has been months. There has not been light. They're talking about drugs. Let me tell you, let me be very frankly. You see, when they talk about drugs, it's something to be worried about. And who's supposed to be put law and order is our law enforcement agency. If it takes, let me say it as it is. If it randomly pick 10 policemen in today and do sample and do test, only I'm telling you that 6 will fail drug test. There's no way these drugs are being sold. They know. In my area here, you see police vans stop, they will just go and buy it. They know. So it's not something hidden. Let's just forget about it. Let the statistics continue to be going up. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Lenin, for sharing that. Okay, so that's update with Abuja and the work that needs to be done, and maybe the reflection on the Minister of the FCT, where I'm hoping that he takes that as feedback. But let's move into some politics. Firstly, says PDP NWC confirms Udeokoye as National Sec, ends leadership, and the Punch reports Abia PDP chapter defies NWC order. Autumn Anyanwu face panel on the 4th of March. It looks like the leadership tussle within the PDP. I don't know if we're finally seeing an end in sight in some measure.
And this leadership tussle has been on forever. I think it started in 2015, and this is 10 years after, and we're still fighting over who the leader should be or who the scribe of the PDP should be. But that's politics, Everybody wanting to push their interest and their candidates to see how they can be the focus of the direction of the party. But with this announcement, I do hope they will lay to rest, the back and forth of who the General Secretary of the PDP is, so that they can start to plan for 2027. Because everybody thinks that 2027 is fire. But in politics, the day you finish an election, the next day the work starts.
So that means the people who are already saying, we talked about it last week, I think, when we said that they were saying, leave Tinubu alone. This is just 2025. Let him focus on government. Stop distracting him with 2027 conversations.
I don't understand.
Yeah, so how are you supposed to focus on governance and your deliverables if you're worried about re-election?
So
are you an octopus?
Is he worried about re-election? Oh yes, at the back of his mind while he's governing. But he's not the structure that would deliver on the politicking. He's already the president. He's going to get a nomination for the second term. Are you with me? Whether it could be automatic. They could say they want to do like they did with the president before him. But will he win? Most likely. But there is a structure that must continually drive the politics and the politicking across the country for those in power. And you would see it, even Donald Trump registered his candidacy a year and a half before, and you saw what it did to the Republican Party. Everybody decided that they were not going to challenge. And the few people that came out, by the end of the first debate, everybody was gone. So that's it. So there are people around who must run those things, and they should run them, and they will speak about them while the president is going on with his work.
Let's get to hear from Kingsley, who's calling us this morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Please go ahead with your comment.
Good morning. How is everything?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for calling.
Yes, I enjoyed your program. It's very, very enlightening. But I still want to draw your attention to this issue of retirement age. It's embarrassing because if you want to look at the international world, everything is sedimental and is guided according to law. If the Inspector General of Police has got to a retirement age and he's not going, they ran to the House of Assembly to change the Police Act other paramilitary is taking a cue from there. It's embarrassing. That thing is making the promotion of the police stand still. Welfare stand still. Every other thing stands still because he refused to leave. And the president is watching. It's not fair. It's not fair. The president is seeing what is going on. They kept quiet. This is very unlawful. Very unlawful. It's not fair. Let this be done in the civilized world. If it is time for you to go, 30 years, 35 years in service, it's okay. 60 years in age, it's okay. If you go to that limit, everybody will drop that so that the force will move on. New fresh, new blood will come in. But I'm not too comfortable. The president saw what is going on and he kept quiet. Let him do what is right. Let him do what is right, please.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I would like you to react to Kingsley's call. It all started with the Police Act. At least the police can argue that there's a law that says the president appoints the IG, he can use a 4-year term. But there's no Customs Act that says the Comptroller General is appointed on a 4-year term. And he also mentioned the unintended consequences of those coming from behind. There will be a backlog. And we might also have a copycat effect where people think, okay, the IG is doing it, well, I can stay in office for as long as I want to.
And I agree.
Do you think his fears are valid?
Yeah, they are. And like I said earlier, I think it's something we need to go back and visit. Do you understand? The police pushed out a new act that was ratified by the National Assembly. And these are things that we need to consider in the civil service, and also in the Constitution, when exactly is retirement. Like I said, retirement age at 60 has been from when my father was in civil service, and my father has died now for 20 years. Do you understand? And these are the realities. Some people join the civil service based on their experiences after working 10, 15 years, sometimes in their 40s or 50s, and then 5 years later, so they should retire because they've hit 60. But they are still very productive.
So we need to
So I think this is a debate that should be put out in public space. Are you with me? And let the National Assembly, let the executives, let them all start. You push, like I said, you push judiciary to 70. You push doctors to 70. So why is it so different? With a country that is growing and developing and new things are coming out and new technologies are being worked upon and new areas of governance and business is coming about, where some of those people have some experience, from when they started towards, growing into where it is, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're gone. And then you bring in a fresher, or you bring in the next person who is already 59, and then 1 year later, he's gone, and then the next one is gone. And then there's no continuity. And that, for me, is a space we need to really speak about, rather than just say, oh, the law says. Yeah, of course, the laws were written by man, so why can't man go back and revisit the law?
Looking at current trends.
Exactly, looking at what is happening across the world. More and more countries are moving their retirement ages to 65, 70. So why won't it happen in Nigeria? 35 years of service is brilliant, don't get me wrong. But those in the private sector who have done 35 years and running, they still move on to do another 10, 15 years.
But the way it is, I mean, those in the customs, those that are overstaying,
what it is now is the law doesn't agree to it and doesn't permit it, meaning that they should retire based on the current law. But if there's a change, that's fine. And the change is when they are within, when it takes effect before they hit that retirement age. Otherwise, you stick to the law. You must stick to the law. Otherwise, we're just that's foolhardy for me.
We've run out of time, but as quickly as you can you quickly speak to the big story on the front page of the Punch? Speaking about Tinubu's re-election, Iowa Consultative Forum and others, they tackled Gaduje over the vacancy. He said something about there's no vacancy in Aso Rock in 2027. So
Danide is the chairman of it.
He's doing his job.
Exactly. What do you want him to tell you, that there is vacancy in 2027?
They say that he cannot be the mouthpiece. They're saying that,
he's the mouthpiece of a party, telling you that from a party perspective, There is no vacancy because the president is a member.
Not saying they won't contest elections.
He's a member of his party. Gandhi didn't come out and tell you that, oh, they're not going to run elections in 2027. That if he said that, that's a different thing. Of course, Gandhi, what do you want him to say? That there is vacancy, then they will throw him out as the chairman of APC. No, he has to defend his party. And like I said,
they probably think it's such a bold statement. That
but it is a bold statement. Everybody there will make that kind of bold statement. Before the elections in America, it was clear that Biden was going to run until the first debate, and everything crumbled. So that's the reality. If he had said before then that he wasn't running, and if the president says he's not running for 2027, which he has not said,
right.
Of course, that's the position.
I mean, now El-Rufai has responded to this. We saw the publication on X that El-Rufai put out, and there's been a lot of back and forth. The thing has been trending for like how many days now? I think 2 days now.
So El-Rufai was a governor. Are you with me? It's like the spokesman when he was governor, and he was going, you know, during his first time, said, oh, there's no vacancy in the office of the governor for the next election. Is that wrong? Well, you know, we all tend to now, you know, because we don't particularly like or agree with something, think that, oh, people shouldn't make those statements. What if I would have made even bigger statements than this?
I mean, he said they will give him the good luck ability, they'll give President Tinubu the good luck ability Jonathan treatment if he's not careful.
And that's fine. They should go ahead and try it.
Wow. Anyway.
I mean, it's a law-abiding citizen.
As long as you
politics to politics.
As long as you go, you follow the rules and regulations. If El-Rufai believes that the treatment that was given to Goodluck Jonathan, which was successful then, they can do it with President Tinubu, then they should go ahead and play those politics.
He's a member of the APC, that's why he's...
It makes no difference. They were all members of the PDP when they defected. So what are we talking about?
Maybe, I mean, some would argue that he's falling out of favor with the North, especially because of the past few policies, particularly the tax reform bills and all of that. But then again, politics will keep politicking and we'll keep talking about
it. Said he's even APC sheep in PDP clothing. Yeah.
That's what everybody is now. And when you look at it, aside from the current president and a number of people, some of them are no longer in active politics. Every other
as cross-carpeted at one point or the other.
They are mostly from the PDP.
Like Daniel Bola said on the show yesterday, can be in PDP in the morning, APC in the afternoon.
Daniel Bola, I was saying, are you with me? He was in the PDP. He was in the APC.
Yeah,
but when Asiwaju was nominated, he said no, he cannot take it.
He went to
the PDP to go and be spokesman for Atiku.
And now?
Now he's gone 2 years to do his doctorate. He's come back as Dr. Boya and he's now back to the APC. So what exactly? Meanwhile, he started off in the PDP. And that's the reality in Nigeria.
Again, because we don't run, so many will argue that it's because we don't run politics of ideologies, because that's why people are cross-carpeting and jumping up and down.
Yeah, maybe from a party perspective, but it doesn't mean that people don't have their own ideologies that they want to follow. And if they see it in a particular person,
they're free to move.
They are free to move.
Anyway, thank you very much, Wadi Ahime,
Thank you for having me as usual.
Always nice to have your insights.
And it's always a pleasure being here.
All right, we've seen what the front pages of the papers are saying. Now let's share with you what Nigerians are saying. Imagine enduring an electricity blackout for 3 months. That's over 100 days. This is the harsh reality faced by patients and students at University College Hospital, UCH in Ibadan, an institution that should be one of Nigeria's proudest jewels, but it's not looking quite like it now. But it wasn't just the patients who were left in the dark. The students of the University of Ibadan, whose medical programs are deeply intertwined with UCH, found their academic routines thrown into turmoil. And unsurprisingly, they weren't quiet about it. Taken to the streets, they demanded action, sparking protests that quickly gained momentum on social media. Now, what caused this blackout? On October 26, 2024, the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, IBEDC, severed the hospital's power supply over an unpaid debt running into millions of naira. This strained relationship between customer and provider pushed the Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu, to pay a visit to UCH. After some negotiations, IBEDC promised to restore power within 24 to 48 hours. Let's take a look at the time the Minister of Power visited UCH.
But letting you know that, number one, the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, IBEDC, has agreed to immediately reconnect UCH to the national grid. And this will be done within 24 to 48 hours. We want it now. We want it now. We want it now. We want it now. We want it now.
I mean, there were other videos, and in the much longer version of the video, you could see that eventually he had to explain to them that the light had been disconnected for over 100 days, so he was appealing if they could wait for a maximum of just 2 extra days. And true to his word, they were reconnected, but the relief was palpable. News broke that the power was back on and it seemed hope was restored. But while the hospital was lit up again, the students who had been at the forefront of this protest were still left in the dark. In a statement issued by Union President Bolaji Aweda and General Secretary Dola Ogundijo, the students made it clear that as of 7 a.m. today, they would gather at the UCH main gate to protest the ongoing exclusion of the Alexander Brown Hall and Ayodele Falashe Postgraduate Hall from the promised reconnection. Despite the assurances of Minister Adelabu, these halls remained powerless. So, Aluta continua, Victoria, hopefully, is still asata within reach. Now, this begs the question, how do we feel about a nation where critical health services are vulnerable to something as basic as electricity? Welcome to What Nigerians Are Saying, where your opinion counts. And let's x-ray the tweets of Nigerians about this on X. Hi, Chief. Aweda GCON is our first tweet for the day. And in the tweet, High Chief Aweda says, we have received reports that they have excluded our hostels, Alexander Brown and Falashe Hall in UCH from the reconnection plan, and we hope it's just a rumor. To be clear, any attempt to reconnect UCH Ibadan without our hostels will lead to the shutdown of UCH itself. Real Dr. Lee says they actually restored power to UCH, but disconnected our halls. Students have led both online and physical protests, yet you believe they don't deserve joy? The same people who restricted us from going out are now enjoying the electricity we suffer while we suffer another night in darkness. Dr. Uzo Dan Macaulay says even the lowest hospital in US wouldn't go without power for 100 days. Yet, Nigeria's biggest teaching hospital, UCH, just got electricity back after such a disgraceful blackout. A nation condemning its most vulnerable to death. This is a catastrophic leadership failure. Hashtag fix Nigeria. No light at UCH for over 100 days, with people bringing in their own power sources. This is really unacceptable. Whatever the reason is, it's a federal institution, and all relevant stakeholders should provide updates on a pathway to a solution. What is the data on lives lost? Our next tweet is from Thomas Philip, who says, this is the highest level of incompetence. Sometime last year, Aso Rock was said to have accumulated huge electricity debts. They only threatened, but we never heard it was cut off for a day, let alone 100 days. This truly is a big shame, and it tells us what the so-called government prioritize. They're supposed to be public servants, but they put themselves first. Next tweet says, Almighty God, I thank you for blessing the work of my hands to provide me with resources to afford health care abroad. The news from UCH Ibadan is sickening. How are surgeries being carried out without adequate power? Jesus Christ. Coupled with fake medication in circulation. Of course, this is in reference to the clampdowns that NAFDAC has been doing around the country, burning down supplies and ensuring that they stop circulation of fake drugs. Mazi Kolade Daniel says, we let our public servants get away with a lot because the Minister of Power shouldn't be so bold to say UCH isn't the only public hospital experiencing power failure and he'll still resume his job the next Monday. Even crazy that the power can be restored between 24 to 48 hours. I mean, something that was away for over 100 days can actually be restored in 48 hours. Interesting. This one says, UCH has light after 102 days and ABH/Falashe is still in darkness. I'm confused. Who were the people on the streets protesting? Who cried for help? Who wrote letters and attended meetings upon meetings? Who begged for their basic rights? Our final tweet this morning says, when a hospital as big as UCH hasn't had light in 100 days, you can imagine the state of healthcare in Nigeria right now. UCH used to be the first point of care for most medical emergencies in Ibadan. Over 3 months darkness. and it's not even mainstream news. Says a lot. Well, you can see now that it is mainstream news, as we have talked about it and are still talking about it until we see a peaceful resolution and that light is returned completely to the horse. I think part of the argument I've also seen on social media are who to blame. People are saying it's the Minister of Power. Some are saying they blame President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Some say, no, it's not the Minister of Power. What happened to the UCH management? Some say, no, what of the Minister of Health who has kept mum, knowing that for over 100 days there's been no power?
So all these people you mentioned, the stakeholders in UCH, and they share one sort of blame or the other. The UCH management, first point of call, should have escalated this to the relevant agencies. To go 100 days without light, even in a primary health clinic, should be seen as something very shameful and sacrilegious. The amount of dysfunctional things that happen in our country, and we just look the other way and pretend like it's normal, is very absurd. You know, the hospital is not a playground. It's not a cinema. It's not where people go and relax. This is lives saved there. It's critical health infrastructure. So for you to go 100 days after so much hue and cry, then you restore power after 102 days. And power hasn't been restored to some hostels, as we've seen in the tweets. It's very shameful. And somebody, you know, the tweets were brilliant because they all hit the nail on the head. Somebody who resumed their job on Monday, how do you feel as a minister saying, you know, UCH is not the only hospital without power? Are you not, you should feel some type of way making such statements. And it should come to a time when Nigerians shouldn't take dysfunctional behavior and things as a regular part of life. Now, so it be. No, we should put our foot down. Why shouldn't hospitals have power? There's somebody in charge. If it has to go all the way to the presidency, let it be. But we need to have a culture of excellence. We need to have a culture of doing things properly.
Absolutely.
Not, oh, this is the Nigerian way, is Nigeria now. Nigeria shouldn't be synonymous with negativity.
I mean, we're seeing from the updates that we're seeing, online, these are like updates as recent as 2 minutes ago. We have begun our protests on the way to the East Gate UCH. Every is smooth sailing right now. And there's another tweet that says, we have blocked the East Gate UCH, screaming chants of Aluta, letting them know that it is enough. Share first and the best, Lee. Realest question ever. So, yeah, go ahead.
Just looking at the history of UCH, that's what makes it very shameful. UCH was the crown jewel, like you said, of hospitals in Nigeria. People used to come from far and wide all over the world to seek treatment at UCH, and to see it deteriorate to this condition of not having light for 100 days, it's beyond shameful.
It's really beyond shameful. A number of people are asking about, you know, how the debt was accumulated, what the funds that may have been allocated to them have been used for. At the end of the day, the conclusion is all the stakeholders need to come together and, you know, ensure that this is sorted out. We'll be bringing you more updates regarding this, maybe tomorrow on the show, but that's all we have today on what Nigerians are saying.
Now, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has commended the spate of construction works ongoing at several road corridors and construction sites within the capital. This was as the minister paid an on-site visit to inspect the constructions of major roads and bridges within the capital. Let's hear what the minister had to say.
I'm quite impressed with the speed of work by the various contractors, particularly those who are carrying out road construction, Jealous Beggar, CGC, as we saw, and quite impressive. I believe that we're going to, you know, meet up like they promised by the grace of God by May this year, and look at the judges' quarters, the FCT, the Federal High Court, and the Court of Appeal. It's really amazing with the level of the level they've got into. And that's what I've always said, that with proper management of funds, contractors are willing to put in their best. When they see that funds are coming, they will not hesitate to work.
Okay, that's the FCT minister there talking about the spate of construction going on in the Federal Capital Territory. We've seen quite a number of this in the last 2 years of this administration. The FCT minister seems to be the top of his game.
Well, anyway.
Others will say it's his work.
It is his work at the end of the day. I know there's usually mixed reactions when people say, oh, you shouldn't be praising people for doing their work. Unfortunately, the level of mediocrity we've become exposed to in Nigeria has now made us have to say...
lights in UCH after 102 days. Let's clap
wow.
for them.
You know, somebody even said that that's something that now people will start saying, no, you should praise the government. The government gave UCH light. Was that light supposed to be out in the first place? Is it not their primary responsibility? Who is supposed to give UCH light? Oliver Modi.
Through your phone camera.
I'll turn on the touch. Anyway, we are heading out of the studio, but thank you for joining us on today's show. We'll be back again tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow is Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
what's your plan for Valentine's Day?
I mean, I'll take the missus out for dinner and... yeah.
Wow.
One.
Some have head but have no cap. Some have cap but have no head. If you have head and you have cap, we hope that you have a way to enjoy your Valentine. But not to worry, we'll start your day right with some of the biggest stories happening across the country. Until we come your way again. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Benga Bora. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Peace out.